Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wild Moments brought to you by Explore.org. It's me, Trishala, and we have the great, the starry Ben Coley with us today. Hi, Ben. How are you
Hey
doing?
everybody, thank you for that, Trish. Very well, thank you. How are you? How is everybody watching us today, I wonder?
I think everyone's going to be much better after they get to spend half an hour with us and get to talk all things animal and wildlife. Regardless of how you were doing today, I reckon after the show, you'll be just dandy. In fact, that's how I feel much of the time as well. When I do the Tuesday shows or the Thursday Wild Moments, afterwards I have a quite a nice spring in my step, I must say. What about you, Ben? Do you feel all full of energy after we spend time together?
Of course I do. There's nothing quite like spending a little bit of time, even if it is only a very short period of time, but to see these incredible things and brings back lots of memories and yeah, absolutely gets the excitement coursing through the veins again.
It does, and I'm extra excited because I'm heading towards the bush tomorrow, so it's kind of like an appetizer getting to watch these
Yes,
things.
well, I'm jealous of that, as I mentioned earlier, but I wish you nothing but great sightings, and I shall get vicarious enjoyment from your bush fix.
Oh, thank you. Like I said before, I have no sympathy because I'm really not enjoying Cape Town right now.
Really?
So I want to get out. It's winter, everybody. Winter in Cape Town is terrible. Unless you're in the sun, even if you're in the shade, but it looks like it's a nice, warm, sunny day, it's a lie. It's a big fat lie. As soon as you go in the shade or you go into the house, it's cold. Anyway, I will cease complaining and remind you all that we're live and interactive.
Good rant.
Good rant. It's always nice when you have an audience and you can just rant freely. But I'll stop. Uh, we are live and interactive. You can send through questions and comments. Let us know how you're doing, how you're enjoying the show, all those wonderful things. And get
Wonderful
ready.
things. And
Ooh, I just heard myself.
Yes,
Oh, dear.
we were getting ready for something. I wasn't quite sure what.
So we have really nice clips to go through this afternoon. We've got some four cool ones. One was not very good for Africam, but we'll get to that in a moment. But let's get through some hellos before we head off and go into our first very cool clip. Zygote says hi to Shala and Ben. Namaste, namaste to you too, Zygote. Kaoru says hi to both of us. Hi, Kaoru. Do you have your milk, Kaoru? Rolling Trouble says coffee and water from Washington. Nice. Catherine says hello, Trishala and Ben. How's this one, Ben? Peanut butter rusks and chai.
Interesting combination. Peanut butter rusks is not something I've had for a long time, but I've suddenly just had another pang of jealousy. It seems the green-eyed monster is very much staying with me at the moment.
Yeah. Andy says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Andy. DNC says, hello, Trish and Ben. Thank you both for being here and sharing all your knowledge. You're ready with your coffee. Thank you for being here, DNC. Amber Co says, happy Thursday. Thank you to all that bring us these shows. Very appreciative of the gifts of time and talents. I always learn something new. Coffee and powdered sugar donut with your coffee today. Yeah. Yep. Green eyed monster. Definitely around today. I love a donut and coffee. I need to do it more often. Mindy Tillapau says, hey Ben, love to see you again. It's been great hearing your voice on the waterhole. Aww.
Oh, thank you, Mindy. It's nice to be back. You will hear me again in a few days, I think. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I need to double check my calendar, but it will be soon.
Nice. And Mr. H UAE 87 says, today we have milk tea. The humble milk tea can sort out any problem, I tell you.
Certainly choice.
Anyway, let's head into our first clip and have a look at what's going on at Founders Lodge with a couple of Sable.
Is that it? Oh, there we go. Exactly the colours, I have to say, with the blues and the orange juxtaposing one another.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing that caught my attention was the colors. Oh, so vivid.
Coming back. Oh, I see some ripples. What a shot that is.
Yeah, it's like he just realized that we're watching him.
Yep, I'm on camera, pose.
Now, for one, I haven't spent a lot of time with Sable. The only time, I mean, I think I've seen Sable at Swallow in the wild, but other than that, I've only ever seen them in captivity.
Yeah, I'm the same with
That's
you, Trish. I've seen them at Swallow. I was lucky enough to work with Rowans, or sea Rowans, quite a lot up in Tanzania, and I think possibly I think I might have seen the sable once in Kruger. But yeah, not something you get to see every day. But it's such a shame because it's such a spectacular animal.
oh, look at this face. The light looks beautiful on you. Beautiful. It knows it. Now, judging by the color and the behavior, they look like two males to me. But I can't say that I've ever. I mean, like I said, only when I saw them at Swallow in the wild, they were not close at all. You know, they were at least 200 meters away, maybe 150 meters away, and I didn't realize that they make that kind of sound. That sounds very much like a zebra, unless there were zebras in the background. Have you ever heard them?
I didn't get any sound on that clip, so unless you were, there may have been zeb there as well. I didn't hear anything there, but I don't know of sables. Let's listen. Possibly like a squeaky whinny I heard there, maybe, but it's very soft on my side.
Oh, it's quite a squeaky. Sorry, that's an awful, awful impression.
So I thought there was a sable next to me for just a moment.
There we go. Um, so
But
why do
animals
why
do
do we
make
think?
strange noises under stress.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's just not one that, and I think it goes for a lot of animals that we see but don't often hear. It is that we don't even think about what they may sound like because we're so used to seeing them and they seem common, and then we don't really think about what they may sound like. And that's what's happening with me right now with the sable. Never really thought about it, but it kind of made sense that being one's being chased and one's certainly the chaser and the other one is the chasee. Um, and I would imagine that it's very intimidated. So it makes sense that it would make that kind of squealing sound.
yeah, absolutely. I see no reason why not. I'm trying to think what they would. Well, there's obviously the most obvious thing that they would be scrapping over. It's a shame we didn't get to see two going sort of horn to horn because that would have been very
Yeah.
impressive. Not something that I've actually seen, but to my knowledge of sables, and I stand to be corrected here because, as you said, it's not something that I have spent a huge amount of time. But I don't. Well, males are territorial, but only during the breeding season, I believe. And I wouldn't have thought that would be now because the gestation is probably around about 8 months. They normally give birth around January. We're already in May, so it seems a little bit late for a territorial dispute. So I don't know whether it was maybe just a discussion over who had drinking rights at the waterhole, perhaps. But nice to see them going round and round, a little bit of exercise.
Exactly. Exactly. And I tend to agree with you that the majority of the time, I mean, anytime there's a dispute, it's always over resources, whether that resource is potential mates or a water hole, whatever it is, it's almost always. In fact, I can't think of a reason there would be a dispute a serious dispute over anything but resources, honestly. And a lot of the time with antelope, you kind of, it's not just strict for the breeding season or not. Sometimes, a male shows up and another male's just happy about it being there, and it could just, tick him off at that point. And it didn't feel like a serious engagement. We didn't see them touching each other in any way. So I think it was more kind of a show of dominance.
Mm. No, I would agree. I think it was difficult to sort of gauge sizes. I wasn't really paying too much of attention, but more of a flexing of metaphorical muscle, shall we say?
Absolutely. I agree. Um, Kara is asking, is that the sable making that sound? I think so. I think it is the sable. I mean, Ben or I have never really heard a sable make that kind of sound before. But like we said, our experience with them is either from a distance or in captivity in some way. So I think it was the sable making that sound. It doesn't make sense that anything else would be making it behind them. Mindy Tillabau, you say, what a stunning backdrop. It really is a stunning backdrop. It really, really is. And especially with the dead tree on the right there, it was just balanced so nicely. It was perfect. So there we go. Look at this. That is stunning. Founders Lodge is in Shamwari, so it's in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. Quite different to what we experience in the Lowveld, which is where the majority of our cameras are. Uh, Christy, you say you saw a large herd in Kruger last year and you were very happy. That's very, very cool. I can say I've never seen one in the Kruger or in the Sabi Sand. I've never seen one. Not to say that they're not there, but little old me has never seen it. Have you seen any in that region, Ben?
So I think I've seen a lone bull in Kruger at some point, but we're going back probably more than a decade now. I've seen Rowan, I've seen Tesseby, I've seen Eland, but I don't think I've ever seen a herd of sable. I remember somewhere up by the Tropic of Capricorn in that sort of area, I remember through binoculars seeing a herd of something, but I can't now remember if it was Rowan or Sable. But again, I'm going back probably 15 years now. It was one of the two. But a bit like yourself, I've been fortunate enough to spend time with Sable, but on breeding farms and things whilst doing other tours where we've sort of gone for an experience or spoken to vets and things. But yeah, out in the wild, other than Swalu, I can't think of anywhere where I've
Yeah.
seen them with any sort of regularity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just amazed that you described your geographical location by the Tropic of Capricorn. I mean, who does that, Ben?
I just remember because we'd really stopped the photo, got out and done the cheesy photograph next to it. That's why it sticks in my head. But see, when I look at that photograph of that lovely scene there, I'm just thinking, why isn't there a beautiful Milky Way running up behind it? Because yeah, from a photographic perspective, it was a beautifully balanced composition, certainly, or an aurora.
we'll, ooh, don't get us started on that. Did you see it? Did you see it over the last,
I
when
did,
was it?
I did.
Oh, this storm, yeah?
It was Friday night. So
Yeah.
I was in England at the time, and unfortunately, as one would expect, so I had about 45 minutes of clear skies, and then it got cloudy and rained. But I did manage to get some photos. I've posted some over the last few days, if anybody's interested. But yeah, amazing to see in the UK.
Oh, I can imagine. It's been a dream of mine since I was a child to be able to see the aurora, but and there were sightings here in South Africa as well. I know there were lots of images from Gansbaai and stuff, but they're long exposure shots. So if I'm just looking with my eyes, I'm probably not going to see the same thing that the cameras were capturing, right?
No, you
Uh,
no, and you never would. Even here, I could see a sort of a diffuse yellowish band across the sky, but that was about it. But put the camera on it, and it's bright green, and there's purples, but yeah, you don't get to see much.
well, that made me feel better about sleeping quite early that evening.
We have got slightly distracted though, haven't we?
um, so Zygote says the darker sable was seen chasing the lighter one for the last few days. Well, that's interesting. So that tells me that there is well, one, the lighter sable usually are the females, but for me something about this interactions told me it's both male, so maybe it's just a young male. And he's being ousted from the herd. Maybe he is over 3 years old and he is being pushed out. And pushing out is never something that happens in one go. It's got to be a consistent effort. So maybe that's what we're seeing as well. And we have April Owl that says, "Good morning, everyone. Finally joined us. Rainy, Connecticut with your raspberry iced tea. Very, very nice." And Teddy Lad Lulu says, "Good afternoon from a rainy, warm day in Cheshire. A lovely cup of tea on hand." And Jean Gale says, "Good morning, too." Thank you for joining us halfway through, everybody. Let's move on. Let's move on to our next clip, which is quite an interesting one and one that you all have been observing for the last couple days. It's One Ton the elephant at Old Donyo, and we're going to have a close look at that injury. The very famous One Ton. So from what we gather, there seems to be something wrong with his tusk, and it's the tusk that he's tending to right now. Ooh. Yeah, my gut feeling there, I saw a bit of pink protrusion. My gut feeling there was some kind of abscess. Let's see if we can have a better look. There you can see the blood running down the tusk. Hmm. That's quite interesting because there's no visible injury to the actual tusk. So in my mind, it feels like whatever the problem is, it's happening under the skin, or possibly uh, like the actual area in which the tusk is anchoring. What would be for our teeth the tooth roots?
Yeah, I don't see any damage on the skin there, so I would agree. Whether or not it was in a fight or he got it wedged on something whilst using it for digging or something, and he's done some damage to the yeah to the root side of it, which has caused. I mean, I was doing a little bit of looking around earlier, and there are so as if they were to split a tusk, it can go up into the root section, and potentially that could cause some internal damage. But the tusk itself looks to be fine. So yeah, I'm not sure, man. An abscess is a good a shout as any, or he sort of ripped it on something and wedged it around, and it's caused some internal damage within that socket there. Oh, it's a strange one because there's no
That
blood
is
in the
that is
tusk, of course. So.
yeah, that's quite that is quite a strange one. So tusk is anatomically or structurally it's very similar to our tooth. So if you chip the outside of your tooth, there's no nerves there, there's no blood vessels there. But if you go deeper and you happen to break your tooth and it hits the pulp, then you are going to get pain and you're going to get some bleeding. And even still, from the outside, it doesn't look like he broke his tusk in that way. But like you said, Ben, I think also, yeah, I think abscess is yeah, a good guess. But I think that what you said about possibly injuring the tusk, as in moving it in some way that was hard enough to damage the inside. Like if you can imagine pulling or pushing your tooth, or you bite on something and it you know, repositions the tooth, that could possibly do it too. I'm leaning
Yeah, that's
towards
strange because there was
abscess.
a decent amount of blood there as well. Sorry, Trish, I was
Yeah,
just saying there was quite a lot of blood dripping down there, so it was a fairly substantial. I'm not sure what the healing capacities of the capillaries and things are in that area of an elephant. anatomy, and interesting to see him. Almost looks as if he's putting his tusk up underneath it there. Sorry, his trunk. You could almost see his trunk
Yeah.
maybe almost went in under a flap there, which I didn't think there was any room. So maybe he has. Yeah, you see when he lifts his head up. I don't know if there's a little bit of extra space there that wouldn't normally be there. So maybe he has done some damage to that, to the skin and the tissue right at the base.
And also, as he put his trunk into that section, we actually picked up like the lip of the tusk skin, and
Hmm.
it was pinky. So it almost as if it's an area that's usually completely unexposed. But
Yeah,
then the
almost as if
amount
it's
of
become a little bit loose in there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Almost like it's become a little bit loose. I was leaning towards abscess as well because if it had burst, then there would be fluids dripping down, but it looks like a lot of blood for just an abscess. Yeah.
It's one of those things. I mean, we've all spent many hours with, but I've never really paid a huge amount of attention to that specific piece of skin just where the tusk erupts um, from the just under the trunk there. I'm trying to think if that's normal but it did just seem as if there was a little bit more give in the skin. So yeah, maybe some damage is maybe he's torn something there, which has just lifted it off the base of the tusk there, perhaps. Not sure. But I have
Yeah.
great sympathy. Anybody who have problems with their teeth, who will know what they're talking about. It's yeah. If any elephants had dentists, huh?
Exactly. Oh, where was this? Mindy Tillipau says, "Oh, nothing worse than mouth or tooth pain." I know. Even talking about it makes you wanna hold your teeth and keep them safe. JJ, in fact, JJ and Stephanie from France wanted to know similar things. Stephanie wanted to know if vets would be called out if an animal gets injured, and then JJ wanted to know if the vet would come and check him since he's a tusker. I'm not sure what so all reserves, unless they're a national park, all private reserves have their own set of protocols and policies. So I'm not sure at all, Donio, what the policy is for treating a big elephant like this, or any injury really that's not man-made or man-caused. But one thing I have learned is when you see injured animals in the wild, more often than not, after a couple days, after a couple weeks, you'll be very glad you didn't intervene because they seem to heal very quickly. And it's important to let that happen instead of intervene because if you do intervene, you're basically introducing another point of failure to that animal's life. So I reckon if they do have a policy that allows them to intervene for tuskers because he is quite a famous elephant, they'll probably wait it out and see what happens before they intervene if they do intervene. That's my take
Yeah,
on
it's
it.
not. I
What
don't
do
think it's a life-threatening problem at the moment. So I'm sure that just like we are watching his progress on here, there will be people keeping an eye on him, and if he looks to be going downhill or anything looks to be seriously wrong, they may consider it in light of his status, if I can put it like that. But yeah, I would agree. As a general rule, I think let let nature take its course because animals are far more resilient than we often give them credit for.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's been so many instances where, as guides, I mean, you're still human, you still feel some kind of connection and empathy towards an animal, and you feel like you want to do something. And by the time you've figured out your feelings, that animal has recovered and healed and put it out of your mind. So it's important to give them that space and the time to do that. Christy, you say yes. A lot of the chatters were concerned about him. I think the best thing that we can do is just keep an eye on him, and basically that's to satisfy ourselves. It's not doing anything for him. He's just going to carry on going about his business. I think worst case scenario is that that tusk will become weakened if it's a uh, really bad, maybe infection or something, or injury. Maybe that tusk would become weakened and possibly break more easily, possibly come out. But that's the worst case scenario. Wonton's not going to suffer anything more um, from his injury. At least I think so. Oh, Kirst has just said that the Big Life Foundation might check on him, and I reckon they would after just monitoring him for a little while. And that's also an important thing for all of us watching the cameras. You were monitoring or looking at him constantly. We have eyes on him, or when he comes to the waterhole, at least have eyes on him for 24 hours a day, basically, if he's around. And so it's important that if you see something, you note it, we can chat about it, and maybe we can let Big Life know, because it might be important. But I think they've got it. Kaoru, you would like to know, will that tusk break off? You saw cracks on it the other day. That's interesting. Um, because are we only paying attention to cracks on his tusk now because we know that it's injured? Or have there been cracks previously that we didn't notice? So there's a whole lot of things that comes into play. It could possibly break off, but I don't know whether the cracks are something new or not. Could be, but also could not be. It'll all depend on how much or how much you have noticed about that tusk. Oh, and you also would like to know, will it regrow if it breaks or falls off? As an adult bull, it will not, as far as I know. So elephants have two. Okay, the first. So when elephants are very young, they don't have tusks when they're born, but they have little things called tushes, and tushes are basically placeholders for when the tusks emerge, and they're very tiny, and often we don't see them at all. And so once the tusks grow out, the tushes basically just set alignment for those tusks. But once the tusks grow out, they don't have another set waiting to get pushed through like they would teeth. Even though it's a similar um, physiological path, they don't have another set coming through, so he won't be able to replace or regrow that tusk once it falls off or breaks. Right, Ben?
Yeah, no, I
Is
agree. No, it won't come back. It's like if you break your tooth, unfortunately, you have to go to a dentist, or you end up with plastic teeth, like some of us have, which is why I have some sympathy with him because yeah, anything with teeth issues is a little unfortunate. But yeah, milk tusks or the touches, and then yeah, I've heard various stories. I haven't heard them being used in sort of resetting or sort of aligning. I've heard stories of them being reabsorbed, but however it happens. But yes, once that adult set, you see normally somewhere between the age of 3 and 4, you'll see them beginning to poke out. That's them set for life. So now, if they break, they break. We see a lot of elephants with broken tusks, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've been reading. Oh, my doubt came in because I was reading quite recently about regeneration in a number of mammals that we didn't think it was possible. But not regeneration of teeth, but it was regeneration of like ear cartilage and things like that. And so when I said it, I was like, but could it be possible? But no, it can't, because teeth are really, really, really uh, expensive, metabolically expensive. It takes a lot of resource, it takes a whole lot of calcium, a whole lot of minerals. And unless you have something waiting below there to come through to replace it, it's basically a goner, unfortunately. Anyway, we're basically out of time, but how about we have a look at the last clip, because this is the one I was saying was not so great for Africam, but it makes great viewing for all of us. So let's have a look. You always know you're going to get entertainment when there's baboons around. I don't know what it is about a tin roof, which there are many of in the bush, and the sound of baboons or velvet monkeys jumping on them that is just so anxiety causing. If you're not sure what's happening, they are chewing on the cords. So that's the microphone there. They're chewing on the cords. They're playing with the mic. Yep, give it a taste. I mean, it's not as if the baboons wouldn't have noticed it previously. It's like I don't know whether I should look at the baboon that's slipping off the mic or the one that was really struggling to get a grip on the roof. So there you have it, folks.
Baboons will be boons.
So you may hear a buzz on the Mabula cam, but it's all going to be fixed very soon, and we can say it's just one of the hazards of having various cameras around in the bush. Baboons will come along and obsess about it at some point. Anyway, it's our time to say goodbye. Ben, would you like to say anything else to everybody?
I would just like to say goodbye and thanks everybody for joining us. It's always a pleasure to be a part of this, and yeah, a mixture of wildlife mysteries and a little bit of troublesome amusement at the end. So we'll hope that we get the one at Babula back up and running 100% soon. Just find some way of baboon proofing things. But no, it's been wonderful to see you and everybody again, and I look forward to the next chance.
Yes, and we look forward to having you yet again. All right, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for your questions, for your comments, and spending time with us. And we hope that you left with a huge smile on your face and that you have a great day further wherever you are in the world. All right, goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.